Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to my show, High Road to Humanity. In every episode, I tell you powerful true stories filled with great wisdom that you can use in your own life as you strive for a higher road to travel. My featured guests will have their own unique stories to tell that enlighten your mind and your soul. So kick back, relax, and learn the secret to success when you take the high road.
First touch, strong connection, it lays deep in your soul.
Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And Maurice Cotterell is here today. He's visiting me from Cork, Ireland, and I'm so excited that he's here today. And we're going to be talking about the cause of allergies, asthma, and autoimmune diseases. So this is a really interesting show. Share this with your friends. I want people to know about some of these cures because this gentleman has written quite a few books. We'll read his biography here in a bit, but Maurice is here to talk to us about these things. But before I bring Maurice on, sit back and relax, and let's talk about what's happening with humanity. Now, this show's recorded, so it won't be but a few days till this comes out on my podcast and on YouTube, but we're having quite a bit of weather here in the United States. Now, I'm in New Mexico and it's snowing here this morning, but winter weather, death toll rises across the US as tornadoes slam North Carolina, which is kind of crazy. It says a blast of wintry weather that has dumped snow and ice across the nation's midsection is being blamed for at least 9 deaths Tuesday as millions of Texans are waking up without power. Now, as temperatures remain below freezing for much of the central U.S., first responders are also racing to find people trapped in their homes after the tornado ripped through a town in North Carolina, killing at least 3. There are also, it says damaged vehicles, debris, 4 million homes and businesses were without power early Tuesday in Texas. Now, it also says that more than 1 million of those outages were reported in the Houston area. And then it says cold weather should remain across Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And I know we're getting it here, and I know my daughters are getting it up in Michigan. I think they have a foot of snow there, so it's kind of crazy here. So Maurice, what's it like in Cork, Ireland? Let me just ask you that. What's the situation? The weather's nice there?
It's been very cold, but it's a lot milder today, and we're expecting a lot of rain any minute now.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's good to get the moisture, right? So that's good. So that's good news. I do have another piece of good news, and this will interest you, Maurice. So 400 years after being wiped out by hunters, Britain's wild cranes make a comeback. It says, extinct for more than 400 years, common cranes are finding their homes in the UK wetlands and waterways once again. So because of conservation efforts that began in 1979, the common crane now numbers almost 200 individuals in the country with more than 60 breeding pairs. It's always great to get the opportunity to celebrate a real conservation success story, and UK cranes is one of these, said Andrew Stanberry, a conservation scientist at the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. That's really cool. Do you know anything about that? Have you heard about that?
Nothing at all.
Well, there you go. You'll have to keep an eye out for that. Maurice. Hey, let me give you guys some information. Now, Maurice has been on the show before, but Maurice Cotterell is joining us from Cork, Ireland, and he's an author, he's an engineer, he's a scientist. In 1989, while working at Cranfield University as head of electrical and communications engineering, he found a way of calculating the duration of magnetic reversals on the sun. Now, using this knowledge, he was able to break the secret codes of ancient sun-worshipping civilizations and understand how the sun affects life on Earth. He's written over 12 books. He's been here before. Maurice, welcome back to High Road to Humanity.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks for coming. This is a crazy subject we're going to talk about today. How did you decide to get into the health, aspect of what you do?
Well, going back many years, I noticed from the age of about 16 that I got flu-like symptoms 2 or 3 times a year. and I couldn't understand why. And the doctors couldn't understand why. And they said basically that it's psychosomatic, there's nothing wrong with you. And then as I got older and I began to have more and more exams at college, I noticed a correlation between when I got the flu and the exams. I got the flu around the time of every exam. And to get over this flu-like condition, I discovered that I could either go to bed for 3 days, or I could go to the local pharmacy, excuse me, and buy there were some Tyrosettes, they were called. They were like pink lozenges, and suck them.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure what ingredient was causing me to get better. So I noticed that there was about 1% antibiotic in these pills. So if I took 2 or 3 lozenges, the sore throat I had, which was common with these bouts of flu, disappeared in about 12 hours, and I felt fine again. So I figured, okay, whatever it is, it's responding to an antibiotic. And the years passed, and I became allergic to certain things. And I went to the doctor, and it was a time when I'd given up smoking on board the ship. And I went to the GP, local GP, and I said, look, I've got some pain in my back, just there and there, and the muscles in my back, and it's like daggers. And it happens every time I go into the ship's bar. So of course he said, don't go into the ship's bar.
Oh, okay.
So when I got home on leave, I went back to the GP again, and I said, I'd like to see a consultant. He said, what sort of a consultant? I said, well, I don't know. I've got allergies, so I'll see an allergy consultant. So he sent me to a private hospital, and I saw this allergy consultant, and he said, you're allergic to cigarette smoke. And it's probably because you've given it up, you become super sensitive to it. And what's happening is the muscles in your back are pulling your throat closed, trying to keep the smoke out. And he did some allergy tests, scratched the skin, and he did cat's fur, house dust, excuse me, all the usual ones. And he left it for about half an hour, and all the bumps came up. And he said, well, you're allergic to most things. So he put me on the inhaler, the salbutamol inhaler. And I was going back to sea, so he gave me half a dozen inhalers to last me 6 months. And I took them, and it was okay. I did feel a lot better. I had to take 3 double puffs a day. And then we were anchored off Karachi in Pakistan one day, and I went up on deck, and I met the electrician's wife, and her eyes were streaming with water, and mine started to stream with water. And I said to her, what's your problem? She said, I've got hay fever allergy, and I didn't get the jab before I came away. I said, well, I haven't got hay fever. At least I didn't used to have hay fever. And all the pollen was coming off the land in the wind onto the ship.
Right.
So I thought, okay, this only started when I started the inhaler. So I stopped the inhaler, and I put up with the allergies, and I no longer had hay fever. It disappeared.
Interesting.
So again, the years passed by, and I was getting, in my 20s, and it was getting worse now. Not only was I getting flu-like symptoms, but it was escalating into delirium, shivering and shaking after about 5 days, and terrific stomach pains. And again, the only way I could get rid of them was with the Tyrosette lozenges. So what I decided to do was to take an antibiotic, and I took 2 antibiotics, and I was cured within 12 hours. So from coming from death's door, shivering and shaking with delirium, from my system shutting down, my heart began to shut down, my kidneys, my liver, I was really, really sick.
Right.
Just 2 or 3 antibiotic pills, and I was perfect again within hours. Went to the GP, and I told him, I said, look, I've taken a couple of leftover antibiotics, and I know it's antibiotic related. It must be an infection. He says, well, if you've got flu, that's a virus, and it won't respond to antibiotics.
Right.
I'm not
They
going
always
to
say that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I said, but I know it's antibiotic related. So he said, look, here's what we'll do. I'll take a blood test. If you've got an infection, I'll give you the antibiotics. If you've not, I won't. How's that? I said, fine.
Wow.
But I knew that if I didn't take them, and the blood test would take a week to get back. If
You
I
would get
didn't take
sick.
antibiotics,
Yeah.
I'd be dead,
Yeah.
probably dead.
Yeah.
I had about 5 left, which would get me through nearly 2 days. So I went to Heathrow, got on a plane, flew to Mexico, and I bought 7 boxes of antibiotics.
Oh, good
And
for
I flew
you.
home again.
Good for
Because
you.
you can buy them over the counter.
Right.
And I took the antibiotics and I went back to see him for the results of the test. And he says, you've got no infection. Therefore, you don't need antibiotics.
Oh, well.
So I said, okay. So I went home and I had a chat with my girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, he's telling me I haven't got an infection. And I know I have got an infection. So the question for me was, when is an infection not an infection? And it was a bit like one of those conundrums when you're a kid. When is a door not a door? When it's ajar.
Yeah, well, why is he not picking it up is the question.
Okay, it is the question.
Yeah.
Or why isn't the infection in the bloodstream?
Right.
That is the question,
Right.
given that I've got an infection. So I thought about it over the years, and I then started to work at the dockyard in Plymouth. I was the site engineer at the Maritime Headquarters, which is a big underground nuclear base. And I had 3 colleagues, and they all started to die. One died age 28, one died age 32, and one died age 60. And I was working alongside them. And I said to them, why are you going to the doctor? And the guy I was working with said, I've got terrific stomach pains. I said, oh, what's it all about? He said, well, they're trying this new treatment. There's a guy in Australia called Dr. Barry Marshall, who's discovered Helicobacter pylori, which is a bacteria that can live in the stomach acid. And before this time, nobody believed bacteria could live in the stomach acid.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you, Maurice. We've got to go to commercial break because I don't want to miss any of this. So let me stop you right here. You guys, I'm here today with Maurice Cotterell. He's joining us from Cork, Ireland. We're talking today about the causes of allergies, asthma, and autoimmune diseases. And this is Nancy You're Out. This is a really important subject. So share the show and we will be right back. Hey, it's Nancy You're Out. This is High Road to Humanity. I'm here today with Maurice Cotterell. Maurice, I want you to continue your story. We've got to stop there for those breaks, unfortunately. But
okay.
So take us back. So you are now working with 3 gentlemen, and they're all getting sick. And one of the gentlemen figures maybe he knows what it could be.
Right. So he said, I've been to the doctor and he's given me some antibiotics and some vitamins.
Right.
And it does work for about a week, but then I get sick again. I said, and what other symptoms have you got? He said, well, I get sweaty and I get sort of shaky. I said, he's got what I've got. And all of the guys had what I've got. So I thought, well, what's causing it? Now, Dr. Barry Marshall was investigating Helicobacter pylori because they cause stomach ulcers, and his theory was that the bacteria eat away at the stomach and cause ulcers in the stomach and the gut.
Okay.
And that was it. That was his hypothesis. So what he did was he got the stomach acid out of different patients. He didn't boil it up. He reduced it and refined it, and he drank it, and he got stomach ulcers, which proved it was bacteria in the stomach acid.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
So for the first time, he got the Nobel Prize for that. And
I bet.
He discovered that bacteria can live in the acidic environment of the gut.
Wow.
Now, all of my colleagues died, so I was left on my own. So I thought, okay, it's something to do with bacteria in the gut. So I started to look into the gut and the digestive system. And I've got this, I put a few illustrations together here.
You guys watching us on YouTube, he's holding this up.
Okay, and basically what happens is with the digestive system is we take food in the mouth masticates it chews it up with saliva. The enzymes in the saliva begin to break down the food. It goes into the stomach. The stomach, once it receives the food, churns up hydrochloric acid. The hydrochloric acid blends the food like a blender. As it comes out of the stomach, it goes into the large intestine, which is like a big tube, about 26 feet long and about 1 inch diameter. Right. And on its way out of the stomach, the gallbladder puts bile acid onto the liquid food to neutralize the acid in the stomach. Otherwise,
Okay.
you'd have acid going through your intestine, which you don't want. Right. Okay. Now, what's happening, it seemed to me, was I must have an infection somewhere in the gut. Could it be Helicobacter pylori? So I had a test for Helicobacter pylori, and I didn't have that bacteria.
Okay.
So I did some more work, and I started to think about it. And it's the way I think about things, which is completely different to everybody else because of my engineering background. And I believe that modern medicine is primitive, to say the least.
Right.
And I say this because in the year, for example, 1800, we look back on 100 years earlier, 1700, with dismay and horror at the practices that they used in those days to heal people. In 1900, we look back with dismay and horror at the practices in use in 1800.
Right.
And they laughed at the doctors of the day.
Right.
And in 2000, we look back at what they were doing in 1900 with horror. And we know that what they were doing was wrong. And now there's only one thing for certain. In the year 2100, if we're still here, they'll look back on today and realize that we were barbaric and primitive. There's no question about that. So we're missing quite a lot of, we've gone as far as we can with so-called modern medicine. It's not going to go any further. Modern medicine imagines that we are biological beings, and therefore, if they study the biological body, the molecular structure of the body, they can overcome any of the malfunctions at the molecular level.
Okay.
Those who are older and wiser understand that we have four bodies, and I've talked about this on previous shows.
Right.
We have an intellect body, the brain, we have an emotional body, the heart, we have a physical body, of course, and we have a spiritual body, the soul. Now, when the food goes into the stomach, there's hairs inside the large intestine that filter out the energy from the food that's in your gut.
Oh.
Now, I've done this one here. Now, this is the tube in your intestine, the large intestine, and it's full of velvet hairs, and that filters out the goodness from the food. It passes it to the liver.
Okay.
The liver converts it into heat, and the heat produces electricity.
Bring it over a little bit more, Maurice. I can't see it. Okay, there you go. Yes. Okay. Yes.
So the velvet hairs. The velvet hairs inside the tube filter out the goodness. That goes to the liver. The liver produces heat, and the heat produces a voltage to operate your computer and your nervous system, which is electromagnetic. And this is a problem. Doctors don't understand electricity, and they don't understand magnetism, and they don't understand gravity. They
don't talk about it.
All they understand is they understand molecular biology and chemistry.
Right.
So what I discovered was that the gut becomes diseased, and it comes diseased in, I've discovered 7 or 8 different ways, where the velvet hairs in the intestine here, they become diseased and they get tangled up like this. Okay.
Why does that happen?
Okay, there's 7 or 8 different ways, completely different ways. And that's why it's so difficult to sort out. It's like having a sieve, putting your hands over all the water coming out of the sieve, and trying to stop the water coming to
right.
One, you put one up and you fixed it, but you don't know you fixed it because it's still coming through all over the place.
Yeah.
So what I discovered was that one of the 8 ways is yeast, okay, and gluten. Now, gluten is a glue-like substance which is in many grains, including flour. And what happens is, you know, when you were kids, you used to mix flour and water in a jar and get some paper and make papier-mâché. You used to use the flour and the water as glue.
Right.
To put the papier-mâché, and you'd make puppets and horses and little miniature cows and things. Now, what happens is when you eat wheat, it goes into your stomach and it glues down the villi, the velvet hairs. It glues them down in your gut. Okay, so the second thing that happens then is yeast in the bread, which is like a grain of rice. It's shaped like a grain of rice. Okay, what happens is that yeast cell gets stuck in your gut under all the hair that's tangled up under the villi, and that in itself isn't a problem. But when yeast multiply, they double in length. They don't have sex like human beings. Yeast is a funny organism. They don't know if it's a virus. They don't know if it's a bacteria. They don't know if it's a fungi. It's a bit of everything. It's got, it looks like a bit of each. But what they do know, it's like a worm. If you chop a worm in half, you finish up with 2 worms. Well, when the yeast cell multiplies, it grows twice as long, then divides into 2 yeast cells.
Wow.
Well, imagine one of those stuck in the hairs in your gut. Here, it gets stuck, it can't move, it's glued down. So when it doubles, it sends a spike through your gut and puts a hole in the gut wall.
Wow.
So all the toxins inside your gut go into the bloodstream.
Okay.
That's one way of how leaky gut's caused. We've not even started yet because this thing is insidious. Once it gets into the gut stream, and this is a paper on my website, which people can download for free, and I recommend it.
Tell them your website, Maurice.
It's www.mauricecotterell.com.
Okay.
And it's free to download. It's 14 pages long.
Right.
And this took me about 10 years to figure out. Now, once we've got the leaky gut, so here is the yeast and the gluten come in here. They cause leaky gut when you have dietary problems like yeast and gluten. Then it punctures holes in the intestine, and the poison in your intestine leaks through and causes toxemia. Now, toxemia is a bit like septicemia. If you cut yourself and it gets infected with bacteria, it becomes septic. And we call that septicemia. We can get rid of that with antibiotics.
Right.
Toxemia is what happens when you get bitten by a snake. The venom is toxic and it poisons the nervous system.
Okay.
Now, when you get toxemia, unless you've got an antidote, there's nothing you can do about it. So inside the gut, so now you've got toxemia. As those toxins leak through the gut wall, what happens is when you eat, your food leaks through the gut wall too. So you've got 2 things leaking through, food and poison. Now, in regard to the food, what happens is when you eat, you get stuff going into your gut and into your blood, which shouldn't be there. So the bloodstream here senses cauliflower and spaghetti, and the brain says, what's this doing in here? This must be some sort of bacteria I've never seen before.
Oh, I see.
So your brain tells your hormonal system to produce histamine. And histamine flushes out and kills these invaders that are in the bloodstream.
Right.
This is why your eyes water when you produce histamine. So that's what an allergy is. When you eat food and it gets from the intestine, it should be in the intestine. See, people don't realize that this here is pointing to my mouth.
Right.
That is the outside of your body.
Right.
In there.
Yeah.
Now, contrary to what people imagine.
Excuse me.
Here's some popular mints we sell in Ireland, and clearly this is the outside of the mints, the outside of the packet.
Okay.
But if you look in the middle, there's a hole in the mints, and I can see you through the hole. Okay.
Yeah.
But the hole is the outside of the mints.
Right.
Do you see that? And
I
this
do.
hole is the outside of the body.
Gotcha.
It goes there to 26 feet and it comes out the other end. It's
Hey,
just that
listen,
you
we
can't
got
see down yours, but I can see down mine.
All right. Hey, we got to go to commercial break again. You guys, I'm here today with Maurice Cotterell. He's here with us from Cork, Ireland. We're talking about leaky gut. It's the cause of allergies, asthma, and autoimmune disease. This is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity, and we will be right back. Hi, it's Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. Maurice, I guess my biggest question is, do we just stop eating flour. I mean, I know I can't hardly eat any kind of gluten. It makes me sick. It's funny, the only time I'll eat like a sugar cookie is at Christmas because I know when I eat that cookie, it's going to make me sick. Um, so you get to a point, and maybe it's as we get older, where you just can't eat certain things and you cheat every once in a while. What is the solution? To just change your diet completely? Do you say we become vegetarians? What do you say?
You've got to understand the mechanisms at play. Once
Right.
you understand what's going on, you can fix it.
Okay.
Now, what you got to understand is you can avoid the bread, of course, but it's not just the
Right.
bread, it's the biscuits, it's the sugar, because if you feed the bacteria, they double.
In size.
Okay,
So it's not just
right.
the
And
bread,
even
it's the sugar, right?
and everything that grows outside
I
that you bring
know.
inside,
I
everything. And the reason for that is if you look at grapes, they've got a white bloom on them. That's
right.
yeast. Apples, pears, plums, berries, strawberries, everything's got yeast on that comes in from outside, and
Okay.
that will give you leaky gut. So it's not just the bread. You've really got to sit down and make a list of everything you eat. Peel the apples, peel the strawberries. It might take some time, but it's the only way you can have them.
I see.
Now, that's one of the ways.
Okay.
Now, 50% of the population have got this, by the way, and 50% of the population will die. You've already mentioned to me that you've got Graves' disease. I
I
had
have.
Graves' disease.
Yeah.
Now, 50% of the people who've got Graves' disease never recover, and that's because they carry on eating the grapes after they've got better. They carry on eating the apples and pears. They don't know what's causing it. That's why it
Right.
keeps coming back.
Right.
Once you understand what's causing it, you can sort it out.
Got it.
And it's you know it's straightforward to me, but maybe not you. Now,
So how long ago did you have Graves' disease, Maurice?
mine was about 2013.
And you just
Okay,
realized
now,
this stuff and you changed your diet is what you did.
and then yes, now 50% of the people who have Graves' disease never get over it, just keeps coming back.
Okay.
Now I've gotten over it. I haven't got Graves' disease. Now, when
Okay.
I went to see my endocrinologist,
Right.
or I should say a psychopath masquerading it as an endocrinologist,
Okay.
I went to see him and I said, look, this is what's going on. And I believe I've got leaky gut and this is how it works. And I showed him this and he said, well, we don't do that. So I said, okay. And he checked me out all over.
Right.
And he said, there's nothing wrong with you. Now, I suspect that my GP, when she referred me to him, put a notelet on there, one of those little yellow stickers, and said, this guy's a fruitcake.
Oh,
There's nothing
great.
wrong with him.
Right.
All the figures are fine,
Okay.
right? All my computer figures are fine. Therefore, he's crazy. So I always take my wife with me as a witness. Whenever
Right.
I go and see a doctor, it's advisable.
Mhm.
So I said to him, he said to me, he said, there's nothing wrong with you after an hour. And of course, a bill for $250. He says, there's nothing wrong with you. I said, well, I think there is something wrong with me. So he said, well, what do you want me to do about it? I said, I want you to do some more tests.
Mhm.
So he threw his pen onto the desk,
Wow.
sat back. He said, what tests do you want me to do? I said, well, look, my neck hurts. So why don't you do a thyroid test? This is
Yeah.
an endocrinologist. This is
Correct.
a hormone specialist.
Right.
Right. He got the needle out of his drawer. He did this. He took the blood samples. You take them down to the hospital. Come back in a week. So I went back. He came, called me up after 5 days. He says, you've got to come down quickly. I said,
Oh my
why?
God.
He says, you've got Graves' disease.
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah, well, what's all that about? He says, well, you've got to come on beta blockers, otherwise you'll die. And I
Mhm.
said to him at the time, I said, you're telling me I'm fine. I said, my heartbeat is 120 beats a minute. My wife's is 60. And you're telling me I'm fine. I said, I'm getting an erection every 20 minutes. And you're telling me my hormones are fine.
Were your hands shaking? Were you shaking? Because I was shaking.
No,
when
no, I didn't have
You didn't
shaky
have any
hands.
of that.
I'll explain how that happens.
Okay. Okay.
Because this is incredible. Leaky gut. Let me tell you what leaky gut causes.
Okay.
Cut to the chase.
Yes, sir.
Heart attack,
Ugh.
stroke, Graves' disease, all of the autoimmune diseases, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis. All of those are down to leaky gut.
Then what
And
can
once you
we
understand
do?
how it works,
What do we
you
do,
can
Maurice?
prevent all of them.
Yes.
So We've had a look how leaky gut causes toxemia. Then what happens is toxemia is like acid in the blood. Those toxins are like acid in the blood. So when the acid gets into the bloodstream, when the acids come through the hole in your gut into the bloodstream, they start to go round and round your body, across the nerves, across the muscles, across the endocrine organs, the adrenals, the thyroid. And what happens is, normally, the wires, these are wires in the body, the nerves, they're covered in insulation, and they're covered in insulations. So if they touch each other, nothing will happen. Okay. And they're covered in two lots of insulation. This is another layer of insulation. Now, what happens is when the toxins start to flow across the wire, it strips the insulation off the wire.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Okay. And it strips the insulation off the wire next to it.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. And what starts to happen? The wires start to short out, and you get sparks, and you start shaking. That's what Parkinson's disease is.
No way.
That's what Parkinson's disease is. So
Maurice,
what you've got to do is clearly make some more myelin. This insulation is made from myelin.
Okay.
Do you know what myelin's made from?
No.
That's a hormone. Myelin is made from cholesterol.
Okay.
Okay. So your brain and God inside, because God's very clever, God says to your brain, I got a load of toxins going through my blood, which is stripping off the myelin, which is going to cause Parkinson's disease. So cover the wires up again with more insulation from myelin. In order to make more myelin, you've got to make more cholesterol. So the brain tells the liver to produce more cholesterol.
Okay.
Cholesterol is a miracle molecule. Let's understand why cardiologists don't like cholesterol. Okay. Because as soon as the myelin is destroyed, the liver produces more cholesterol, which is a fatty substance. The fatty substance clogs up your veins and causes cardiovascular disease, and that causes heart attack.
Right. So
the heart doctor would say, get your cholesterol down, otherwise you'll have a heart attack. So what do? They put you on statins. And statins shut down the liver. They stop the liver from repairing the nerves.
Oh, that's not cool.
Right. So as soon as you've gone statins, you can either come this way and the body will try to heal itself, producing more myelin, or you can go this way. Now, if the liver does not produce more myelin, it burns off the nerves in your brain, giving you dementia or Alzheimer's, or giving you Parkinson's and the shakes, or it gives you multiple sclerosis. So you've got a choice. You either have a heart attack or you have all of these diseases.
I see that.
So you've got to make your mind up.
Okay.
Now,
how do you fix us? How are you going to fix us?
Okay.
Okay.
Now, when you see the cardiologist, he'll say, what you need is a stent to open up the blockage in your heart.
Right.
So what he'll do is he'll give you an operation and he'll cut your wrist and he'll put a catheter up there into your heart.
I know.
And he'll find out where the blockage is, and he'll put a spring like that into the blockage, and it opens the blockage up, and the blood will move around again, and you won't have a heart attack. But then he says, now I want you to take 1 aspirin a day to keep the blood thin. Otherwise, if the blood gets thick, it might bung up your heart. It might get clogged up. Now, the trouble is, aspirin is a non-specific anti-inflammatory drug. And when you take aspirin in your mouth, it goes into your stomach and burns holes in your gut.
I know.
So now you've got holes from the yeast, and you've got holes from the aspirin and the ibuprofen. And the ibuprofen, that's the same. So now you're in trouble.
Right.
Okay. So now we'll look at the Graves' disease. When you've got toxemia, now look, there's a way of testing. You can see this is a minefield, right?
Right. No, it is. It is.
Colleagues this is why they all died, and why the doctor says there's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
Okay. Now you can test for leaky gut. You can have a $500 test. It's called it's named after a guy. It's a sugar test, but it doesn't work. So I won't even mention that one.
Okay.
You can have, or you can have one for free. Okay. Now I'll show you how to tell if you've got leaky gut.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll tell you how it works, how this test works.
Okay.
And tell me if you can see this or if you can't see it.
We've got
okay?
about 2
Now,
minutes to break. So
here's one I
Maurice.
prepared early. Can you
Okay.
see that?
Oh, wow. Yes.
Can you
Okay.
see
Now, you
that?
guys, if you're listening to me on YouTube, so he has a cutting board right now and he has some garlic and he has a garlic
Okay.
cloves and he's got them chopped up. Okay.
Okay, so that you start off with the garlic whole, the bulb.
Okay.
Then you
Right.
take out one large clove or two
Right.
small ones, chop
Okay.
it up, put it onto a spoon, and then throw the ingredients to the back of your neck.
What?
And there's a way of doing that, so you don't want to taste it. It's so horrible. So if those are your two front teeth, just tap the spoon on the two front teeth, and all of that garlic will go to the back of your throat, and then wash it down with water.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do that first thing in the morning. It's got to be first thing on an empty stomach. Otherwise, you might heave. It might make you sick.
It'll make you
Okay.
sick. So it's got to be first thing in the morning before you eat anything. You have the garlic.
That's right. Yeah. And all you need to do is leave that for 1 hour before you eat and drink normally.
Okay.
As I say, wash it down with a mug full of water.
So no
perhaps two.
coffee,
If it
no
burns,
nothing.
Nothing. Just
Nothing.
water for at least 1 hour.
And garlic.
Now that garlic will go through your stomach and it'll
Okay.
kill all the bugs in your stomach. Then it'll go into your large intestine. It'll kill all of the bugs in your intestine. All of the bugs will die. It's like an atom bomb going off.
How often do you do this, Maurice?
Every 7 days.
Every
Okay.
7 days.
Now, if
Okay,
you get
we have to go to
really-
commercial break. I'm going to stop you and I'm sorry and I apologize because I'm doing the podcast too, Maurice. So you guys, this is Nancy Yearout. I'm here today with Maurice Cotterell. He's talking to us about what causes allergies, asthma, autoimmune disease, Graves' disease, heart attacks. And he says it's from leaky gut. So this is a show you should really share with people. Hey, listen, and before we go to commercial break, I will remind you that I've got a new class out there called Intuitive Business Practices. I want you guys to check it out on my website, nancyyearout.com. Also, I'm doing psychic readings, so just click on the book button, go to my website, nancyyearout.com, and you can book an hour or 30 minutes with me. Okay, this is Nancy Yearout. This is High Road to Humanity. We'll be right back. Hi, it's Nancy Yearout. I'm here today with Maurice Cotterell. Maurice is joining me from Cork, Ireland. Maurice, garlic in the morning every 7 days. For how long?
Right, and if you're really bad, it could be every 5 days. Now, what
How do you
happens
know?
is
How do you know? How do you know? Like if
you'll
you
get okay.
okay.
As soon as these wires start shorting out, you'll get a
Right.
headache. Okay, you'll keep getting headaches, and that tells you you've got leaky gut. Now, once you've had the garlic for an hour,
Okay.
just continue as normal. And if you get a headache after 12 hours, you've got
Okay.
leaky gut,
Okay.
and that headache will last about 2 days. And then
Okay.
after 2 days, what will happen is the liver will cleanse the blood of all the poison. So what's happening is when you take the garlic, all the bugs in your gut die. They all turn to poison. You get a wave of poison coming into your bloodstream. And it's like, this is how migraines are caused as well. So it comes into the blood, attacks the brain, the wiring in your brain. Then your liver tries to clear it out. And as your liver clears it out after about 36 or 48 hours, you'll be completely well again. But you'll get a pretty bad headache once you've had it.
And will you feel differently?
The day after, you'll feel fine. You won't have any symptoms of Graves' disease or anything. You'll feel healthy again.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Because this will stop Graves' disease. It'll stop the advancement of dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. It'll stop you having to have a heart attack. But the important thing is to remember is that the cholesterol is a very important molecule, and they don't really understand it today. How God uses cholesterol as the master molecule
benefit.
in the body to heal the body.
Right.
It's healing the body.
So I'm gonna
side effect.
Okay, I wanted to ask you a question as far as a statin goes. So if that's the case, if cholesterol was made to heal the body and we're taking the statin, is statin something we should stop taking?
I would say absolutely, but it's up to you, because
Right.
if you stop taking the statin, you'll have a heart attack. if you keep on taking the statin, you'll have dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or multiple sclerosis. So the choice is yours.
Yeah, right. But if you take the garlic every 7 days for the rest of your life, you'll stay cleaned
You'll be okay.
out and you'll be good.
You'll be okay.
All right then.
Yeah, you'll be okay.
Okay.
In a nutshell. Okay. It's far more complicated than that, because what happens is with the leaky gut, once you've got the toxemia, let me explain another way of getting toxemia. Another way is through stress or fear. You see, when you're afraid, you produce adrenaline.
Okay.
And that helps you to run away or have a fight.
Okay.
Now, the first thing that happens when the fight or flight response, they call it,
Right.
the first thing that happens when you're afraid is you empty your bowels, because that allows you to run away or have a fight.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what adrenaline's for. As soon as you're in a dangerous situation, you produce adrenaline. It makes your hair stand up on end, and it makes the hairs on your arm stand up on end. But you empty your bowels, and then you can fight or run. Because if you notice, when you eat, you fall asleep, because all of the energy is being used up to digest the food.
Right.
So this is why you empty your bowels.
Right.
And what happens then is you get gut dysbiosis, which is an unbalanced gut, which is what we saw before, and you destroy all the velvet hairs in your gut away. So this is another way of destroying the hairs in your gut, not just through yeast and gluten, but through stress. So when you're worrying all day, if you're in a stressful situation like, oh, I can't pay the mortgage, oh, the kids are sick, what am I going to do? I've got to do this. And you're getting surges of adrenaline all day long into your bowels. They call it irritable bowel syndrome. And your guts become red raw. Now you go to the doctors, they say it's only irritable bowel, don't worry about it. It'll kill you, because that's what leads to leaky gut.
Well, and I just want to say something really quick, Maurice. A lot of this stuff, people are starting to intuitively know over the years that the gluten has made them sick and stop eating this stuff. And people have learned, that fear and that, anxiety and stress have caused a lot of these medical issues too. So, I mean, people are starting to become more aware, don't you think, of some of this stuff too?
Clearly, people know when they're not well.
Right.
Now, the problem is when you go to the doctor, they don't want you there. They want you out of the way. They'll give you 10 minutes and they'll take you $200.
Right.
But they've got better things to do than sit and think about this.
I know.
They
it's
weren't
so
taught this
terrible.
at college.
I know.
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Yes, it is terrible. But I'm afraid it's something we have to live or die with.
Yes.
And unfortunately, when you die, they bury the evidence or cremate it.
Yes.
Now, another one that's very, very important, another line of attack, is when we get stressed and fear, we produce more cortisol. And cortisol has two purposes. It's the wake me up hormone, and it's the anti-inflammatory hormone. Now, the immune system operates through inflammation. And the reason it does that is because the immune system isn't very clever. God's clever, but the immune system isn't. It's very, very basic. And it's like having a rat running around a room and you've got a gun and you want to kill the rat.
Okay.
Now turn off the light and do the same thing. Now you've got a problem. You don't know where the rat is. So the best you can do is go bang, 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 in the hope of killing the rat.
Right.
And this is what the immune system does. It sends out white cells. When you get high adrenaline and high cortisol, it triggers the immune system. It sends out white cells to attack the invaders. And the white cells bang into your throat, and it's the white cells that give you a sore throat, not the sore throat virus, not the flu. People think, oh, I've got a sore throat, it's the flu. It's not, it's your own body giving you the sore throat, because the infection has been trapped in your tonsils, and the white cells are trying to kill it. Now, what happens then is it damages the thyroid, and the thyroid regulates your heartbeat. So your heartbeat goes up like to 120. And then if that happens, you'll have a heart attack.
So when people don't handle stress well, the body attacks the thyroid, is what you're saying. Is that right?
Yes, and that is what Graves' disease is. Okay. Now, Graves' disease, this is how barbaric it is. Graves' disease, he said to me, okay, you've got Graves' disease. I said, what do I do about it? He says, 3 things you can do about it. 1, you can drink some iodine, which is radioactive.
I did that. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Anyway,
yeah.
so
I know.
I said, well, I said, but what are the implications of that? He said, well, if you drink the radioactive iodine,
Yeah.
your thyroid will suck in the iodine because it needs iodine to make the thyroid hormone. And because it sucks it in, it burns out the thyroid completely.
Yeah.
And you say, but that means I've got no thyroid hormone. And he says, but we can give you pills for the rest of your life.
Correct.
And you say, but what about if we have a war and there's no
Don't
pills
tell
coming
me
through?
that, because I have to take pills for the rest of my life, Maurice.
Okay. So that's what I said to him. So he said, the second one is you can go on carbimazole, which is a drug which chokes off the white cells in your body. Yeah. I said, so the white cells will stop attacking your thyroid. It stop kicking your thyroid, and the thyroid will stop producing too much thyroid, making your heart go too fast.
Thyroxine,
So I said, okay, how long do I have to take them for? He said, 18 months. I said, 18 months? He said, yeah, and they're not very nice to take. So I took them anyway for 18 months. And in fact, I didn't. After 8 months, I was fine because I knew what was causing it. I stopped taking the yeast. I figured out what it was. And I'm just
but for somebody like me now, Maurice, and I drank the Kool-Aid. I drank the radioactive iodine probably, 25 years ago. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I take, thyroid medication, and I have to, because so if I take the garlic, and I'm asking this for myself and for the audience, we still have to take our thyroid because our thyroid is not secreting any thyroxine.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, you'd still have to take the thyroid.
Right.
And you've got to make sure that the thyroid hormone doesn't interfere with the garlic, because garlic will upset your stomach. Not very much. You won't notice it, but it will slightly upset it, especially if you have too much, 2 teaspoonfuls instead of 1. Now, what you need to do when you've got Graves' disease or any other disease is the doctor will give you blood tests.
Right.
And you've got to write them down on a piece of paper like this. This is what I did, because you're the only one who's going to sort this out. The doctors won't sort it out.
Right.
And like I've got free T4, that's the thyroid hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, cortisol. Then I've got all the hematological measurements, like the red blood cells, white blood cells, blood count. These are all those. Then you've got the routine chemistry that they test you for, which is salt, potassium, chloride, and a whole host of things. And then your cholesterol. And write down the figures, because when you've got Graves' disease, you have to go to the doctor once a month, because with carbimazole changes the bone marrow in your bones, and it chokes off the production of white blood cells, because that's how leukemia starts, when you don't get enough red blood cells and white blood cells. Now, this is my thyroid. When I went to see him, well, the range of the thyroid is between about 12.5 and 22, which is there. That's where it should be, in that green zone. When he did my blood test, this is a guy who threw his pen on the table.
Right.
Mine was 66.5. I think somebody was trying to tell me something.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, so every month I monitored it, and I watched the thyroid hormone come down.
Right.
Now, I should have stopped here. I should have stopped taking the carbimazole. I'd had enough,
But
or
you
at least
kept
reduced the dose.
Yeah.
I should have reduced the dose. But he went on holiday, so I couldn't have a blood test. So I overshot, and then my thyroid was too low.
Right.
So then when he came back, I had to reduce the dose, and you write everything down, dosage this, dosage that, and you can see the thyroid coming up and down, and eventually it settles down.
Yeah.
And you've got to do this for yourself. And that was the months and years that followed. It was dead steady again.
It was steady.
Now,
And listen, we got to get out of here for the day, but gosh, Maurice, thank you for teaching us all this stuff. Now, all of these attachments that I have, you said in the beginning of the show, these are all on your website. People can download these, right? And so you guys just go to Maurice Cotterell, and it's MauriceCotterell.com. And you can look at these and you can download. And can they email you with questions and things, Maurice?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
It's on my website at the bottom, the address.
Thank you for coming on the show today. I'm going to have to get my garlic out and start chopping it up for tomorrow and getting it ready to go. But thank you for helping us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's okay. You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Hey, you guys, it's Nancy Yearout. It's High Road to Humanity, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.